What's up everyone, Steven here from TechMaker. This is building an NFT bookstore with React JS part 3. In the last couple of episodes, we basically just got set up and explored the code a little bit. In this episode, we're going to go ahead and jump into setting up the actual front end, at least starting. And this should kind of just expose you to some of the React JS basics. And then in the next couple of episodes, we're going to build on that to kind of get our core user interface set up. So let's go ahead and open up the code. And to do that, I'm actually going to stop this server I was just using here. I'm actually running on a brand new computer today. My other one I've been using was from 2015, so it seemed like time to get a new one. So if anything is really different or quirky, that's why. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. That feels like a lot, but maybe that's good for you. So, okay. So we got that open. I'm going to open up a terminal here. And so just so you know, let's jump back over really quick to the actual terminal. So if we jump back up a level, this is our React app. And I just called it React app. In actual fact, it's a truffle project. I should have called that something better. But anyway, so you've got all this stuff here with like contracts and migrations and so on. So the folder we're going to be doing most of our work in for the moment is this client. As I said before, we wrote some contracts, so we'll bring those into that contracts directory later. But right now, just worry about the client. So we can actually close out of this terminal up here. We're just going to use this one. And we'll go ahead and start with npm run start. Just to make sure everything runs, it's going to go ahead and open up our browser. As you saw in the last episode, it's asking me to confirm, and I just installed the code base fresh. So in the previous one, we'd been changing that number and stuff, but it doesn't matter because we're going to get rid of all this anyway. But it's all good to go. So make sure that's at least working for you. So the next thing I want to do, and I should have actually stayed in the browser, I'm going to go ahead and install Bootstrap. So we're not really going to do much with Bootstrap in this series, at least not right now. This really isn't a design course so much as it is just I want this to look decent, and I know Bootstrap really well. So if you have a problem with Bootstrap or whatever, feel free to use your own framework or whatever. But I'm going to use Bootstrap. So basically there's just two steps that we got to follow here. npm install -- save bootstrap, and then we need to copy this line and import this. So I'm just going to copy that. I think I can remember the npm install bit, and so we'll jump back over to Visual Studio. I'm going to stop this. We'll do npm install -- save bootstrap. It would be really funny if I forgot that right after saying that, but I believe this should be doing the trick. And then once we have that, we'll need to open up our found a bunch of vulnerabilities. It seems like it worked. I don't like seeing red at the end of a message here, but whatever. This is from the official docs, so I assume it's fine. So if we open up the source and we look at index.js, what it wanted us to do was just paste this in here, and I'm going to put that right above my index CSS so that I can override things in the index if I want to. And then we'll do npm run start again, and basically what I want to see is that the fonts and everything update, and you can see that they do. So everything looks just a little bit different now. Okay, cool. So now let's get rid of this boilerplate stuff. So if we go back into our app.js, let's move this down so we can actually see what we're doing. Actually, we can move it way down because we don't really need to see that output for the most part, I don't think. So basically what I'm going to do to start is comment out this example code. So we're setting state and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to touch that right now. None of this is going to matter. I just don't want to get prompted. I don't want to get prompted over and over and over again to essentially confirm this thing. So if we go back over to the browser, now we should be able to just refresh, and it's not going to prompt us to confirm a transaction. and it's just going to keep that value at 0. And we talked about that in the last episode about why exactly that's prompting you to confirm. And it'll become way more obvious as this series goes on. So next, what I want to do is just start getting rid of this stuff and putting in some components that represent what we actually want. So right here, we can get rid of this. Actually, let me leave that because this is something we're going to need later if we're connected to Web3 or whatever, and I'll just leave that boilerplate there. So basically, let's just get rid of all of this stuff in the div. So if you're new to this channel, one thing that's really different than a lot of tutorials you're going to follow is we're building out more in-depth projects step by step. And I don't really make a lot of this stuff up before I go. This is all sort of live streamed almost. I mean, it's not live right now, but it's I'm working through this live. So there's a different vibe, and that's on purpose. So there's going to be some back and forth. I'm going to have to look things up occasionally, so on and so forth. But I just want to point that out in case you're new to the channel. That's kind of what we're about here. So if you're new to React, you may be looking at this and going like, oh, this is HTML. It's not technically HTML. It's something else called JSX, which looks like HTML, and you use it inside of JavaScript directly. It's a special aspect of React. And it makes it where you can write stuff that looks like HTML, and we'll get into some of the benefits and stuff later. And again, there's some intro courses out there that do a really nice job. I might link to some that I watched a long time ago in the description. I don't know if they're still relevant, but anyway, one of the things you'll notice is you can't say class, so you have to say class name. So for example, let's say we do div class name equals, and then we do container, which comes from Bootstrap. So now if we do hello, if we go over, actually there may be a bunch of CSS saying to text align center somewhere. I'm going to get rid of all of this. So we'll save all of that. And you can see right here, basically we have this very, very tiny hello up here, and it's bumped in away from the edge of the screen. And basically what that is there's a container that comes from Bootstrap, which is just sort of pushing content in from the edges. So essentially we have Bootstrap set up, and that's proving that. So what I want to do is, first of all, close that because we don't need it right now. And inside of here, I'm going to say something like, first of all, let's do a div, and we'll do class name equals, and this is P5, which is another Bootstrap deal. And it's basically just saying, give us some padding. Let's do the app. Well, let's not mess with the app. Let's do, I guess we can. Why not? It's kind of the body, right? So what we could do is do like BG light, which is sort of a light gray. And then inside of here, let's do another div class name equals card. And again, so this one thing that you might be thinking is like, well, what are we doing right now? Which is a fair question. So in the contracts, what we actually did is we started by building out this publishing functionality. So what I'm going to do here is essentially kind of lay out a page that a publisher might see, which is like a list of all the books they've created, which ones are published, which ones are not, and maybe how many copies have sold and that sort of stuff. So we're going to kind of just start roughing that in this episode. And then in the next episode, we'll get into setting up routes and different pages and so on. So anyway, and if you're just totally lost and wondering where we're going, that is where we're going. And I think when we're done with this series, I'll post like a little like, here's the finished product. So maybe if you've come into this in the future, you already know where we're headed, which is probably useful. Okay, so anyway, enough talking about all that. Let's go div class name equals, do card body. Okay, and then inside of here, let's give this an H3. I need to like, I just got this computer and I haven't got all my like keyboard stuff set up yet. So I think what I'm going to call this is publishing list, not kissed, list. Let's go see what this looks like. Okay, cool. So we have a publishing list. You can see we have kind of a gray background behind there. This does not look great right now, but again, not the main problem. We could do a P4 here to kind of space that in a little bit. Maybe I need a P5. I like how React, you get this hot reloading, so you don't really do anything. You just save and the screen updates. That's great. I'm coming from other backgrounds. If you watch this channel much, you know I really enjoy Ruby on Rails, but this is a cool thing about React. Okay, so we got our publishing list. Let's do a table below this, and we may make this not a table in the future. We might add like some kind of custom cards or something. But for now, table, and we'll do class name equals table. That's a Bootstrap thing that just gives it a little more formatting. And then inside of here, we'll give it a TR. And let's see, what all do we need? So we have the title. We don't want to put the description of the book here because that'll be way too long. What else do we need? Copies. Maybe like, let's do, copies. So number of copies. We may need more data later. Let's do published. And what else? Let's see. Maybe that's good for now. Let's go see what that looks like. Not great. Let's give this MT5. MT4. Oh. I'm going to do 5. Okay, so basically we got a table here with the book title, the number of copies, and if it's published or not. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just put some rows below this. And in a second, we're going to actually, basically what I'm doing is just sort of writing the HTML right now. And in just a second, we're going to refactor this into custom components. So that's where this is headed. So I'm going to make like, let's say we have 3 books. And what we can actually do is we want to switch all these. I should have actually not copied that so many times. Let's do one correctly and then copy it a few times. So what we'll do is change all these to be TDs. I have this brand new like fancy Magic keyboard, which I'm totally not used to. So in addition to not having all my keys set up yet the way that I like, I also hit the wrong keys a lot. So that's kind of funny. So we'll add several. Well, let's just do 3. That's fine. And let's just pick some books here that we've written. Let's just see. We'll make up some. Getting started with React. I was going to list some real books. We've written 2,000. We were publishing 2,000 copies of that, and we'll say it is. I did not mean to hit all those new lines. We'll say no, it is not published yet. We'll be like Ruby fundamentals copies 100, and then yes, it is published. And then we could do something like JavaScript basics, and we've got 250 copies of that, and yes, it is published. Okay, so now if we look over here, this doesn't actually really look like we've gotten our class from Bootstrap in a way. What if we do table? Maybe I'm just I wonder if this is Bootstrap 5. Let's check. Bootstrap 5. Let's see. So I'm really not familiar with Bootstrap 5 as much. Content, tables, table classes, table. So some of my styling is not getting picked up here for some reason. Maybe I need to add a T body. Maybe it doesn't like that. Well, what is it? So I have a T head. And then I need to bump this up in there. Let's see if I got anything on that. Okay, that kind of added like the underline. So I think maybe in a new version of Bootstrap, you have to be kind of strict about this. Seems like it. We'll see. Let's bump these guys in and see if they get fixed. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that looks better. It's more like what I was anticipating. And that, now that I'm seeing that, probably should be an MT4. Okay, so that looks kind of fine. These guys, these titles are going to be links, so you're going to be able to click on that and go to the book. And actually, what this should be is like 2,000 out of 2,000 remaining. So this kind of gets into like how many are left. And then we could do like 0 out of 250, something like that. So it kind of shows you like what you've got left. That's kind of nice. Okay, so let's make some components. So if we jump back to the code, what I want to do is create a new folder here called components. And inside of here, we're going to create a component based on this publishing list thing. And I just realized something. So if you're kind of familiar with React, or if you've been learning in the last couple of years at all, watching tutorials that are from the last couple of years, rather, you'll notice that this looks a little bit funny. And that's because nowadays most people are using function components. And I just realized Truffle comes with class components. So I'm not going to fight against that right now. I'm going to try to get this working with the class components, I guess, and then I'll worry about trying to clean that up in an episode, maybe a couple episodes from now. Anyway, a lot of stuff is basically the same, but it won't work exactly how I'm wanting it to right now. So we're going to just kind of work with what they gave us. So I'm going to create a new file inside of components, and we'll call this publishing list.js. And then I'm going to copy a few things from over here. We'll import React. I don't think I really need anything except that. And then basically what we need to do is sort of mimic the behavior here. So we'll have class whatever extends component. So we'll have a class publishing list extends component, like that. And then down at the bottom we can have export default publishing list, like that. And then the only thing we really have to do, and I think so, for the class style, you have to define a render method. And then that render should return an element. So what we can do in here is say render like this. And then this just needs to return, and then we can say like h1 and then hi there, like that. And now what I'm going to do is go over to, what am I doing? There we go. Now I'm going to go over to app.js, and below all this stuff, I'm going to import my own components. And then we'll say a publishing list. And if I just auto select in VS Code, I think I have a React extension maybe helping with that. I just set up a bunch of new stuff, so not 100% sure what's going on. So we're importing this publishing list, and the publishing list is really just an h1 tag. So let's come down here, and inside of our app, let's return publishing list. Just right above that, let's just print out our custom element. So I have publishing list, and then we'll close that off and save it. And if we go back over to the browser, we have hi there in big text. So that's a very, very basic component that we're pulling in, but that's basically useless. So what I want to do, I don't know if I'm always going to have a container, and I don't know if there's always going to be a P5, but let's just take this chunk here. So this isn't fully decided. Like, again, like I'm making this up as I go, literally making it up as I go right now. So what I would like to do is basically say, okay, this is going to be my surrounding content that's always going to be there. So on every page, you're going to have an app with a background that's light. You're going to have a container, and that container is going to pad everything in with this P5. And then whatever is in the rest is whatever's in there. So what I can do here is basically paste this, all of this, and I need to back all of this stuff up. And we can save that. And we can save this. And now it should be blank over here if I go over. Yeah, it's blank because we didn't actually print out the publishing list. But if we print out the publishing list now and save it, we should get the same. Okay, so that's cool, but it's really not doing much yet. So what I want to do now is actually split these up where each row is its own component. So in order for us to do that, we need to be able to pass what are called properties to the component, because these are not the same on every row. So here's what I mean. If we go back over to our code, we got our publishing list here. Let's say that each row down here, and again, we may change this so it's not a row in the future. It might be some other kind of element. Let's just kind of write the code that we would like to have. Publishing list item. And then we might want to say like title equals something. And then we could say like sold quantity equals something, or like maybe copies remaining is some number. And then we have like total copies, and then published equals something, right? That's what we would like to have. And then what we can do is actually pass in the actual value. So for example, we would have publishing list item, and then pass in getting started 2000, 2000, and then no. I did not mean to do that. And so we need to do that. Now what I want to do is create a new file over here. It's going to be a new component. We're going to call it publishing list item.js, and let's go ahead and copy all of this and paste it, and then I'm going to change it to say item, and then we're not going to return any of this, so we can get rid of all of that, and then we can get rid of publishing list item. Okay, so that's basically that's not what I want to do. That's not going to work. Let's do a div and then say test. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and go up to the top. I'm going to import. I'm just kind of getting all the boilerplate set up here. So we'll import our publishing list item from publishing list item. And then here, just underneath this, let's just add an H1. And we'll go ahead and print out our publishing list item. And again, this doesn't do anything. I'm just making sure all the wiring is set up. So we got test printing out here. Okay, so we've connected our publishing list item. So I haven't used this class style in a while. So let's go Google really quickly, like React class style component props. Components and props function composing components. So you can see here, like everything's kind of using this style right here. Function, welcome, that's a component, and then you have like welcome, so on and so forth. Props. Okay, so that's not helpful. You know what? I'm gonna pause the video really quick and just do a quick research on this, just to like, it should take it just a second. but I don't want to make you sit here and Google with me. So we'll come back in just a second and get this going. So it seems like I can use this how you would expect, where if you're just using simple props, you've got this welcome, extends, React component, hello this.props.name. So I'm going to assume that's the case, and let's just try this. So let's go back over to here, and I'm going to cut one of these table rows like this. Nope, don't need to leave the editor. And I'm just going to return this table row. And inside of here, what I'm going to do is change this. And so this is how you basically list out props in React. Man, I got to hit the right buttons on the keyboard. So we say this.props.title. And then we can say, what do we call this? This.props. Copies remaining. Let's copy this. This.props.total copies, I think. And then this.props.published. Okay, so here we got we're calling these props, which we're passing in like this, right? So one thing we can do also, and this is probably just because I've got my text so big. One of these days I'll get used to this keyboard. So it's kind of conventional to actually do this. Basically just kind of multi-line this so it's easy to see. Okay, so inside of here what we can do is, what do we call that originally? Doesn't matter, we can make up a new one. Getting started with React. There's going to be 2,000 copies remaining. We have 2,000 and it is not published yet. So let's save this and let's go check the browser. And you can see we still have getting started with React printing out here. So now basically what we can do is copy this. And you can see basically what we're going to do here. So we're just going to cut this text. And this is essentially how you set up really simple React components. And in the next episode, as I said, what we're going to work on is the routing. And the game plan is basically to sort of code the sort of look and feel of this to get around a few different pages related to publishing. And then come back and add a lot more functionality. So there's 0 copies of this one left and 250. Doesn't really matter what number I put here, I suppose. Yeah. So anyway, this data that we're hard coding here right now, if you save this, it will automatically rebuild over here. We can add another book just to be sure that we're not playing any tricks. Let's do like advanced JS. There's 0 copies and we made 2,509 of them. Okay, so now you can see that we're just adding components. So the nice thing about this is essentially this data, normally you'd probably have some like data set coming back from an API. So like let's say we pull back a list of books that we've created from the API, and then we can actually query. Once we get the books back, we can print out each one with one of these publishing list items. And the cool thing too is we can keep track of state really easily. So let's say we published 2,000 copies and that's coming from like some database. Well, what's cool is like the copies remaining is going to have to actually call out to some blockchain. So there's a lot of different like things we could be calling out to here. And so we might get data back at different times. And so at first it might say 0 and then update. So your screen might have the books all listed with 0 remaining and then update whenever it gets information back from the blockchain. So React is really cool for this kind of stuff. And you saw that whenever we ran the app at first in the last episode, is it said 0 on the screen whenever we had not clicked the MetaMask button yet. But then after we clicked MetaMask, It updated to 5 once it got back that data from the chain. So anyway, at this point, we've basically kind of set up our publishing list here. We've got inside of our publishing list, we have publishing list items. And then we have our publishing list item component where we're actually using some props. So this is all kind of basic. If you've done React before, this is going to be super basic. I also want to switch away from this class style. So I need to look at exactly what I need to do because I need to reconstruct some of this stuff probably. I might go ahead and build out like the basic user interface for the first feature we want to do fully and then do that because I don't really want to be doing stuff that's outdated on this tutorial. But I might need to look at that a little bit off camera. So anyway, I think that's pretty much it for this episode. What we need to do for this publishing list is basically a couple of things. So we need to have a button where we can click new up here in the top right, and that's going to take us to some form. So that'll be one page we need to build. And then we need to have it where you click getting started with React or whatever, and then it has like a show page where it shows you the details for that book, probably more stuff like the description and so on and so forth. So the next steps are basically just to sort of hard code some stuff onto those pages. So really, I'm kind of taking this like really step by step. So we're going to start by like next step is going to be setting up the router. And then the next step is building out those pages. We might go ahead and refactor to use the function style after that. But anyway, so once we have gotten that all to a point where we're pretty happy with it, the next step is really going to be to integrate with Aleph, which is going to be our decentralized database so that we can actually create book records. So we'll have like a getting started with React. We'll store that on their decentralized database, which will be really cool. And then once you've created a book, you'll be able to publish it onto the blockchain via our smart contract. And then people will be able to buy it in the store. So that's sort of the whole thing. So we'll have to build out the store interface also. Anyway, all this sounds simple, but there's actually quite a bit of work to do. So we're going to get to it. The next episode should be out tomorrow. I'm going to try to start doing at least one a day, but try to do 2 a day. We've also started rolling out some new sorts of content on the site, or on YouTube rather. New types of videos. We're gonna be doing a lot of new stuff. So if you're enjoying this, definitely go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you soon.